Is 4:15 p.m. on Wednesday, December 4th, 2024, and I will call this December meeting of the City of Merrill Park and Recreation Commission to order. First agenda item, approve minutes from the previous meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved. Next agenda item, approval of claims. Any question on page one of, or the page of the claims, right? Do we have one page?
That's it, yep.
Yep. Any question about the claims?
The trees, is that money that you pay or is that like grant money or?
That is, for the trees, it's budgeted, so,
Budgeted,
yep,
okay.
the one portion, 4,700 was regular tax levy. That's what we budget. Typically, by the time we're done with our tree keeper subscription and all that, we have about that much to spend, and then the other, we've been able to budget through like streets capital, an additional amount over the last few years, just so that part of it is we started to have to plant more after road construction and other things like that. So I was asking for 20 years prior to that, but instead of it coming out of that budget that has kind of dwindled a little bit over the year, this does allow us to not only replant or restock some of the recent road construction projects, but also can help us keep caught up or get caught up and plant ahead on some of the areas that either requested or need trees.
General repairs for $12.99. What would that have been?
Where are
For
you?
stainless steel on 10/30 of 24.
Oh, that is part of their HVAC stuff before we get the ice rink
Yeah, okay.
up and rolling. They always come through and make sure they fire all of our
Yeah.
stuff on, and especially the chiller.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
How are those doing? They still squeaking by?
Still doing good.
Reminds me when we had the old swimming pool and people would ask Stan, she goes, oh, they'll go fire it up again this spring, so
I
we'll see
know.
how the summer goes. So.
Certain things, just like Fight Club, you don't talk about Fight Club.
So, any other questions on the claims? Is there a motion to approve the claims as submitted?
Oh, motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second to approve the November claims. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The claims are approved. Into the general agenda items. Dan, looks like you have some good news to update us on the Prairie Dells to City Forest Bridge.
Yes, the county was able to, they went through the bidding process for the bridge, and I do believe they had two bids. One was a state company, Custom Manufacturing, that we have used in the past, and the other one, it was from a place that was out of state that was actually, their bid was the low bid, but not by much, but they ended up going with Custom Manufacturing just because of the relationship that they have with them and the fact that Custom Manufacturing visited the site on a couple of occasions, so they were familiar with the work. The other company did not visit the site, and they had a few suggestions and ideas that just really weren't realistic. They were going to try and walk an excavator across the river down below, and there's just certain things that we know that they couldn't do that they said that they could do. So, yeah, that was decided upon, and it looks like it'll be spring, summer, depending on how weather conditions are and everything. They will get to work on installing that. And then on the flip side, what we will end up doing on both of us, the county and us, is making sure that once it's in place, then we'll match our trails up with them.
The bridge itself, is that a county project, county funds?
It's
We work
ARPA,
with?
yep, that's
Yep.
county ARPA, yep.
Cooperative.
Yep.
I guess, I think I remember you said it would be similar to the one at Prairie Trails, potentially, for...
Yeah, fairly similar. It's going to end up being similar span, probably not quite. The one at, trying to think, that's 20 years ago now. I think the one at Prairie Trails is 193 feet. The one at Prairie Dells, I think, only needs to be, and that's going to be from start to finish. Even the approaches, I think, in the 170 range.
Okay.
We'll need less of an approach on our side just because we do have the slope coming down to it, so we don't have to make up the rise or run
Okay.
there. So should be pretty cool.
All right. I guess one other question, just thinking about it now, that it's kind of a county-city shared project. Is the maintenance going to be expected to be shared between the two of us, or?
We'll work on a joint agreement. With Dean and I right now, we get along and work together really well. But that's something that is in the works. We'll make sure that we both take care of it. It might end up being something that we just do a half and half or something like that. We do the half coming in from the city side, and they do the other thing too. The one thing that we'll have to make sure that we're careful of too is the snowmobiling aspect and things like that too. That's we had to really battle that issue when we put the bridge up at Prairie Trails. The snowmobile groups wanted to drive over those, and it's rated for it, but we weren't going to pay the amount that it would take for the decking and the other engineering that we had to do for that. So, and for us there too, the snowmobile trail goes through closer to the entrance by Heineman, but the remainder of those trails are designed for silent sports and biking, hiking, walking, hunting, and other things like that. Once we open that up, then we have some other issues that would come into play.
How old is the bridge at Prairie Dells Park? About?
Prairie Trails or Prairie
Or
Dells?
I'm sorry, Prairie Trails.
Prairie Trails, it is 20 years old. I think that was 04.
And what is a maintenance schedule on that, or what type of maintenance do we do on that?
At some point, we asked for last year for funding for some of the rails for sure. Within the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to need some funding to replace some of the railings, and there's some deck boards that are starting, but it's, knock on wood, it's held up really good.
So it's been minimal maintenance in those 20 years?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. One of the nice parts about this style of bridge, and we work together on this because of the fact that they have those flow-through pans, that the uprights. We've all seen how the river acts at Prairie Trails. DNR likes those because then we don't have to redo any engineering reports because we don't displace very much water at all. The water can flow through there. It's helped us because there isn't any undermining or anything like that. With concrete and floodplain things, then we have to get engineers and engineering companies involved, and we have to do certain things upstream, downstream. The same will apply up at Prairie Dells City Forest area too. They did determine a few, I think we had this discussion here, but they did determine a few areas as wetland, even though we strongly disagreed with it. We don't make the rules. So this helped keep this moving in the right direction without having to spend more frivolous money on things that we shouldn't have to do. I just said it.
Okay.
Any
Anything else for Dan? That's good to see that happen. I think it'll be a really nice addition to that area. So.
Yeah, tying those two together, I think is going to be pretty neat. And yeah, when we get there, I'll make sure to let everybody know. And maybe if I get a schedule, once they have it, if anybody wants to come up and take a peek, it'll be kind of interesting watching them set it. But bring your fishing rod too.
Okay, thanks, Dan. The next general agenda item was an idea that I had, a request I had to Dan to get it on the agenda. Thought it might be beneficial to everyone to actually see the statutory authority, statutory responsibilities that we as a Park and Rec Commission have. It's something that's come up a couple times over the years since I've been on the commission, and I just found it helpful. So it's mostly just for all of your knowledge. And also I think the understanding that we are a Park and Rec Commission, we're not a committee or a board, which is not a huge difference, but there are some differences. So basically, it's not super long. Reading statute or regulations is never fun. A great thing if you're having a hard time falling asleep to grab it. But the statutes are there. I think it's kind of interesting historically that the legislature found it important as they were structuring our state government that certain things in cities were important, like police and fire protection, like city plan, like parks, that they were important enough to actually warrant some statutory authority and responsibility. I love that authority word, but I really view it as more responsibility we have to know and understand what we should do for our city and the residents to have a good functioning park system. So there isn't, I'll turn it over to Dan in a minute. When it was really helpful to me, I was thinking back, time goes by, 15-ish, 14 years ago when I became chair for the first time. I was aware of it, but I went in and talked to Mr. Hayden, the attorney, just to make sure that as chair I had a pretty good understanding of what we should be doing and how we should do it. And I thought since we have some newer members, maybe some of you might appreciate seeing it. So there's probably nothing really more to it than that. Dan can finish too. One thing just to realize if you've read it, and we've already talked about that at some meetings, we do have some responsibilities and authorities, but we also work quite closely with council, and the city council is referred to a lot in here, what we can do with their approval or with their authority. And obviously a big one is there's no money tied to anything we can do there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dan if he's got anything to add, but hopefully just something, if some of you weren't aware of it, you can be aware of it now or keep a copy for your reference.
Yeah, Dan covered it pretty good. I think there are some misconceptions about Park and Rec Commission, like we can do anything we want whenever we want. We can't do that, but we do have different authorities though than a committee or a board, and some of those include. So we look at ourselves, kind of to Dan's point, as specializing in parks and recreation for that matter too. But the commission, the Parks and Rec Commission, and commissions across the state and the country that fall underneath these statutes are formed for and do have the ability to make regulations. We talk about things like that here, where we set up our own park rules and other things like that. We can adjust fees, we can add fees, we can remove fees. When it comes to property and gifts and donations, we do have the ability to purchase property for parks or the like, and take donations, whether that be monetarily or land or gifts, however they may define the word gift. But the key thing here too is where you'll see, especially the two sub 2 on here, pretty much everywhere in there it says with the approval of the Common Council. So it doesn't. We do have certain abilities and capabilities that a board and a committee does not. But so long as we are involving the Common Council and they are okay with it, it just basically means that they knight us to go ahead and do these things with their approval. So, like when the Sumnicht property, once we had their approval, we were able to, work with them through the ARPA funding that we had to purchase 70 acres of property. We did the same when I started with Prairie Trails. That was property that was gifted to us, but we had to go through the process to get approval and work with city council. They said, yes, go ahead and do your thing, and that was how we acquired 99 acres for Prairie Trails. So, again, a lot of this, it was rooted in the fact that they wanted a higher level of specificity for all the moving parts that are involved in parks and recreation departments across the country, to, I guess, just to have that extra layer of it's not even bureaucracy, but just specialization, I guess, would be the right word, because we do deal with certain things, large and small and everything in between, and these statutes do allow us to do that a little bit more readily, instead of having to just be straight recommendation, because those things then have to flow all the way through all the different processes. So, just information. Anybody have any questions?
So to read this right, if I understand, to exchange, like when we exchanged did that land swap, that was in our right,
Yep.
without the common council, right? According to this?
Without,
Yeah, because it made it sound like, the only reason I'm asking, because I read in here, where was it, no? To sell or exchange property no longer required for this purpose, and that was approval of the common council. Is that, am I reading that right?
Did it say with approval?
No, so if you read C, read all of C.
Can you read it out loud, Dan?
okay. Subject to the approval of the common council to buy or lease lands in the name of the city for park, parkway, boulevard, or pleasure drive purposes within or without the city, and with approval of the common council so I think.
So within or without the city, that's how about the city,
Yeah, but just-
the
but just
city
keep
limits.
going.
Okay, every city is authorized upon recommendation of its officers, board, or body having the control and management of its public.
You skip to sell or exchange,
Recommendation of board.
right after common council.
To sell or exchange property no longer required for its purposes. Every city has a.
So am I reading it? I mean,
I think with that, I interpret that as, instead of saying within or outside of the city.
The city limits.
I think that's what that means.
I was reading it and I'm like.
Because I think it's that very first sentence there, where it starts out with the approval of the council.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everything in C after that is covered by with the approval of the council. And that's, but I think, I'm quite certain that it's like the city limits, within or without the city limits. Like we bought the city forest land, the
Mhm.
Sumner property, it's outside of the city
Yeah.
limits, I think.
Okay.
Now, you gotta remember,
I
a
was
good,
just trying to read that.
these are written by lawyers,
Yeah.
so
I
good
know.
statutes and regulations, you can read them 3 times and interpret it 3 different ways. They intend that, I think. The other thing I would say is, if anyone ever has any questions, talk to Mr. Hayden. He will be, that is why we have a city attorney. He will be happy to give you his opinion on it, or not. But most of it is, if you read it a couple times, it's not that long. It's pretty direct and straightforward, but for what it's worth, I've thought it's good information to know. I had no idea when I first served on this commission that there was actually, I'd probably been on the commission a couple years before I knew it was in statute.
Yeah. And I know a lot of times the other misconception has been, if we have funding, let's say somebody comes by and gives us, $2 million and says, let it rip. We can accept that, but we do have, with the approval of city council, and they've put layers on. There's policy that any gifts that are over 5,000 or something like that, we do have to have approval through. But once that is done, and the city council says, yeah, we're okay with that, then we're ready to go. We can work with whatever entity that is to purchase the
I
land.
think a lot of that, like the Riverbend Trail too, I mean, Dan did tons of work on that. The council gave their approval, but then Dan was doing a lot of efforts with that, with the Riverbend Trail
Group, yeah.
group.
Yep,
I mean, the
yeah.
council, gave their blessing, but then they were not super hands-on.
Council, no, and we wrote the first 2 grants, for the first couple of segments of Riverbend, and that was, we worked a lot with River District Development Foundation, and I think the rest was just keeping everybody here informed on what was going on, and city council as well, but yeah.
So, okay. All right, there you have it. Don't lose it or burn it tonight, whatever you want to do. So, Dan, December monthly report.
Any questions before I get going?
Did the parks get closed up, wrapped up, pretty on schedule? Any of that rain slow things down that finally came, or?
No, we got, we were able to get everything that, luckily we had a little bit of that extended, decent weather down the stretch here, because we usually, one of our last things that we try to do is aerating, and we were able to get that done the week leading up to opener of hunting, so not last week, but the week
just in
before.
time.
Yep. So we got all of our, especially, the soccer fields and the softball fields at the Mark. Those get used heavily. Athletic Park, Lions Park, some of those sports field areas. So, but yeah, we got everything done. And now we're starting to bring picnic tables in. The boys got a chance this morning to get a trial run with about the perfect amount of snow for getting some of our parking lots and sidewalks and other things set up and ready to go for the winter season. I know, we have what we call our school route, just the areas, Normal Park and that lead to Washington and the middle school and some of that stuff taken care of and all done just in time here. So it was kind of a good exercise here today to do it before the winds got crazy and on a day where we didn't really have to worry about moving a ton of snow for the first time during the year. We always kind of cross our fingers that our first actual kind of snowfall is that 2 or less, because it does help us tremendously. So yeah, ice is up and rolling. We are getting ready for some holiday items coming up with Winter Wonderland and some Santa Claus activities down at the Agri Pavilion. Little Dribblers basketball, getting ready to start that with our sign-ups ongoing. I've got a number of year-end things I'm working at finishing up with Tree City USA applications and a few grants and a couple other things like that. So, yeah, it was another adventurous year. 2024 was, but I know I always do make the note at the end of it. But I try to say this a few times a year, and if I don't say it enough, I apologize to everybody. But I do need to thank not you guys. I mean, for being here for us and helping make decisions and being really good advocates for Parks and Recreation, not only just in here but out and around town. It's very much appreciated. And our staff members that work tirelessly in all of our different areas, it's not easy anymore. Just sometimes the way that people treat people, for people to just do their job and catch some of the flack unnecessarily that they do, and they keep doing it each year with a smile on their face. The volunteers, parents that help coach different things that we do, from T-ball to Little Dribblers coming up to all the different functions that we do, seasonal employees and everybody, just want to thank them a lot, as well as the businesses that we beg off of all year long for T-shirt sponsors and sponsors for our programs and everything that we do. It's kind of what we do. You really, I guess if you don't, shame on me, but appreciate the community that we live in and the opportunities that we are afforded in doing what we do with working with so many different people and working together with them. So thank you everybody for a great year. Looking forward to I know we say it every year, but it's hard to believe that we only have a few weeks left of this
December.
year. It's gonna be January before we know it. So
Okay.
With the extra ice time, do you see any problem with concessions?
no.
Okay.
No.
That's good.
Yeah, and Marathon got their situation figured out, so
Okay.
they're starting to funnel some of what was going to be the normal time back. But in the meantime, it was nice for us to showcase what we've got, because we did get some people that have already leaked off of some of their ice time to come here.
That's good.
There's a few reasons. I can say this with the utmost confidence, our ice is better and our ice is cheaper. So, not scared to say it. The cheaper part, we gotta work on a little
Yeah,
bit.
maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that why a lot of them come here?
We're fairly convenient, and yeah, it is, it's a factor. It's not the end-all, be-all, but for the upper levels, they know the difference between good ice and not. I'm not saying that they don't have good ice, but we're fortunate that our guys do a good job, and we have good ice. And when you're playing higher level high school hockey and even bantams on up, it's a difference, softball or baseball. When you go to a field, when a field is a good field, and when you're going to the back 40, it's every one of us can name a handful of places. But our cost, we've been really slowly trying to ratchet that up a little bit, and I think everybody knows that is going to be on the move again. That's something that we'll discuss at part of the budgetary process in 2025, because our ice, especially for our in-house user groups, youth hockey and figure skaters, is dirt cheap. Dirt. I actually had a conversation with the guy from Green Heck the other day, and he said, "You're killing us." I said, "You guys are overpriced."
Well, because we have had some pretty regular small increases over the last
We have, yeah.
10 years maybe now, and it seems like everyone else is bumping, like we're not catching up, really, or we're
No,
maybe barely staying in pace with them, but.
I can say this pretty safely. If we were to go and try and play catch up in 2 or 3 years, we would put our user groups out of business,
Mhm.
or they would go elsewhere. They would go. And when we do this, I'll make sure I'll bring you guys a spreadsheet of who charges what, because everyone's pretty comfortable sharing, and everybody knows it anyway. So, but yeah, we that would be what I would consider a point of diminishing return, where they would say, okay, we can do that, but instead of buying 60 hours, we're going to buy 25. So we'd still be probably right back to where we were, and we would hurt them. That's why we've kind of been, it's easier said than done, but knowing everybody's financial situation, we unfortunately are in a community that has declining enrollment. That's not a secret. There's some of the areas that we're competing with and against, the Everest area, the greater Wausau Metro, Marathon County area, there's some of those school districts are growing. So their hockey associations are getting bigger. Ours are holding their own, but we want to make sure that they're comfortable growing, and we have to get a little bit out of it in addition to what we have been.
Well, Dan, do you think there's some room to do some increases? Obviously not escalated up to match, or could there be some tiered pricing, locals having a discounted price, but the
Yeah.
out-of-town ones?
So we
Maybe
do-
there's some room where you don't impact the volume?
So we do that already. We have our main user groups pay $85 an hour, and our out-of-town or other user groups pay $125 an hour. So, and we used to, and it still exists, but we give a $2 an hour discount for every 100 hours that they would buy. And we used to do that because when I first started, hockey was buying 600 hours a year. That was when they had huge numbers and they just needed time. So we would, if you bought 200 hours and we charged 85, obviously you're down to $81 an hour because you already purchased 200. And as far as room, yeah, there's room, and we've been, over the last 6 to 8 years, I think we've even added $16, $18 onto what it was per hour, because it was really, really, really cheap when I first started here. It was very low. So at 85 for the user groups now, and that was after we enacted that one in 23 to take effect in 24. So this year we'll let this one ride and then do another one. I think that, and I'll kind of not ask them, but to get a feel for what they can still afford to do with the prices that they charge their users and still purchase as much ice as they need is where we kind of have to be. So, even
Yeah.
if it's $5-ish, back to 90 gets us a little bit closer. The out-of-town groups, I'm comfortable with that one. Again, we'll have that conversation, but going up another 10 an hour or something still keeps us, 10 to 15 bucks an hour. We're still well within or below where everybody else is at. Green Heck is well above $200 an hour.
I guess that's where the room is.
And they, like I said, the numbers that they're dealing with are
It's cutthroat.
exponentially more than us, and they've added some of those, that Central Wisconsin Storm team that started out as their high school co-op. That's my brother's middle daughter plays on. They're dropping down to second graders now, so they've added 300 kids to their program. It's
It's a lot of user fees.
It is, yeah. So, yeah.
The old price volume economic supply chain,
Yeah, it is.
the curve, I should say.
Yeah, yes.
So with the out-of-town teams, that's not affecting our in-town teams at all?
No, that's always, and before we do that, we always get together with our user groups late summer before we get ready to start, and they fill out, what they want. We leave a little bit of flexibility in there, and then they understand that once we're done, we give it a little bit of time. If they have any additions, we always try to do it right around their sign-up. When we're done with that, then, we'll open it up to anybody else that has it. There are times where even youth hockey will add they'll add a practice or a game to the schedule, tournament here and there. Same with figure skaters. High school, that schedule we do have to remain fairly flexible for them too, because for them to add a game or last couple of years we've had a few times where there's been some cancellations with goofy weather, more so freezing rain stuff, where we have to pluck that one, and then they have to try and find a time to make it up if it's a home game, and then we'll talk to whoever had that time and say, hey, listen, can we work with you here and just bump you so that varsity can play their game here? And it's worked pretty well for quite a long time. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other things you'd like to highlight, Dan?
I think that's about it. No, I just want to thank everybody for everything we do. We got a new crew this year. It's been great having the new ones on here. Appreciate what everybody brings to the table. Seriously.
Good. Yeah. Okay, so with that then, the next agenda item is set a date and a time for the next meeting. Historically, at least in the recent past, last 6-8 years, we have not had a meeting the first week of January with the holidays coming up. So if everyone is good with that, we will set our next meeting for February, our next scheduled meeting, with always the option at the call of the chair if something would come up unforeseen that would need action prior to February, you'd all get notified, and we'd try to find a time that works for everyone. So is February, first Wednesday in February the 5th, 4:15 p.m. in this city council chambers, okay? Very good. Public comment. All right. I would then entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.